in spirit with us. Miss Denise, now which one? Do you want to introduce your part of your family? Would you stand up and introduce just maybe?
Abby will introduce.
Abby, okay, good to see you.
I'm Abby.
Hi.
I'm her daughter.
All right.
I'm her family. I'm her only family. But it's here. But it's here.
I got you.
I'm the only family that she loves.
Yeah. You know, now you live in
Locust Grove.
Locust Grove. Okay. Well, we're going to have to move Locust Grove closer. Okay. Now we got another part. Is it Miss Candace?
Yeah.
All right.
So this is my son Carson, my daughter Mackenzie, my son Joseph, and my husband Bobby.
Hey, good to meet you. Bobby's got that face that's either familiar looking or I've met him somewhere. I told him I was a retired trooper. And, you know, he didn't. Well, he's got that straight look though. He didn't crack at all.
He's not the one in the family that speaks.
Oh. Listen,
yeah, I do have a twin brother who has lots and lots of data with him.
I got you. Well, what I'm going to do is I put these in my phone personally, and I put the date that you come so I can, you know, have your information in case I need it. And Sister Barbara will probably wind up mailing you a card thanking you for coming. And I'll tell you, I don't know. I think we need you worse than maybe you need us.
Amen.
Right? So you may have come for us more than you came for yourself this morning. So sometimes God turns things around like that, don't he? We needed this encouragement for you being here. Okay. Well, I'm gonna try to give you some instruction. Well, God's given it to you out of His Word this morning that can be very beneficial to you this morning. I'm gonna try to stay off of your toes. I'm gonna try to make this a feeding session instead of a smash session. You know, that's hard for me. I've got more evangelism in me, so I like to tear down more than I like to build up. It's in my nature. Nothing personal. But I don't know, the Lord dealt with me this week on this in my daily Bible reading. That's where I get all of my sermons. I get up, I read the Bible, I make notes, and then sometimes it's a week or two, I'll go back to those notes. I'll think, this is where we need to go. That's what happened here. And what I want to talk to you about this morning is a thing called rest. And our study text, if you want to turn to Mark chapter 2, you can probably stay right there through most of it. Mark chapter 2, verse 23 through 28, that's our study text this morning. And I'll read that to you. Let's pray first. I'll get rid of the jitters here. Father, Lord, help us to do right by you this morning and delivering what you'd have us to deliver. Father, change this or rearrange it, Lord. If there's too much of me in it, take me completely out of this. Bless our families that's come to visit with us, Lord God. They've already blessed me. And Father, if you can see something here in the future for them, Father, I would just love that. We're just going to need so much help in the distant future. I just think that you want us to be a part, maybe some type of a part with the new church you're trying to plant in Muskogee. I'm talking about all of us as members here of the church to maybe get involved in that in some way. And Lord, there are our outing that's coming up and our fall activities and all the things that we look so much forward to being together, that you could involve our families together with that, Lord God, and honor you and glorify you, Lord. Give us instructions to live our life this morning. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Forgive me, I have to take a little bit of water here and there. My mouth kind of quits me. But Matthew chapter 2, verse 23, and it says this. It's talking about Jesus going through it's not a corn patch. Now, I know what the Bible says, but if you do research on this in the Hebrew and stuff, you'll find out it's a wheat patch. And they're going through this wheat patch on the Sabbath day. Now, I want you to understand, this is the Sabbath day used to be, that was recognized on a Saturday. So it was a Saturday. And they're going through this patch, and they're hungry. They're doing the Lord's work. They're on the move. I can't imagine any of these men having an ounce of fat on them anyway, but they get hungered. And so it says, Mark chapter 2, verse 23, it came to pass that he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, that's Jesus with his disciples, And his disciples began, as they went, to pluck the ears of corn. And the Pharisees said unto them, Behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? And he said unto them, this is talking about Jesus, we're in the red now, Have you never read what David did when he had need and was a-hungered, he and they that were with him? How he went into the house of God in the days of Abinadab the high priest, and did eat the showbread which was not lawful to eat, but for the priest, and gave also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, The Sabbath. Please, this is what got my attention right here. This verse is our key verse. You look in your announcements, so we pulled this verse out. He said unto them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. That's what caught my attention. I've read it 100 times, but therefore the Son of Man is Lord also over the Sabbath. I begin to look at that. God has instructions in his book here. He has rules, he has commandments, and this book is a book of instruction from God. If I was going to tell you, Sister Louine and Sister Sherry don't live too far from here, and Brother Charlie, just right down the road, I can almost throw a rock. You know, I can throw pretty far.
I can throw a rock.
And I can throw a rock and hit them. Here's the thing. If I told you to get to Sister Louine's house, what I want you to do is go about a mile. Go about a mile across the highway here, a mile or two. Somewhere down there within a mile or two, turn right. Then go back north, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks, something like that. Then go back right again. Then you'll be headed back east, I think. Probably within 500-100 yards, or I don't know, quarter a mile, maybe half a mile. Somewhere there's where her house is at. What's the chances you finding that? Very unlikely. Now, if I said you need to go 1.2 miles, take a ride on so-and-so street, go left for a quarter of a mile, take another ride on so-and-so street, and go 2.5 blocks, and this is the address of her house, you're going to find it. Okay, here's what's happened to society. And this is what's happened to the church to some extent, and even to us, me being guilty at times of this same thing. God gave us instructions on how to do things in our life. He's not only our creator, but when he created us, he said, this is how you need to live your life. This is how you need to work. This is how you need to play. This is how you need to give. When we alter that, we get in trouble. Okay? That's what got me started on this message. And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man. In other words, God made the Sabbath. Now, Saturday's not your Sabbath. Maybe Sunday's your Sabbath. We kind of look at Sunday as the Sabbath. But Sunday can't be the Sabbath for everybody. You understand that? It can't be. I used to get so confused with God, and I would argue with God and say, God, how can my day today be the Sabbath, and I'm working and trying to get people off the highway and cars untangled and to get the right person over here to rescue somebody? How can this be my Sabbath? Now, I think when we're free to allow Sunday to be our Sabbath, we should. If we have the opportunity to not work on a Sunday, if we can make that choice for ourselves, I believe we're going to be so much better off. Just like they were on Saturday when the Sabbath was on Saturday. But if you have a heart attack here in just a little bit, you're going to hope somebody's working down there at the emergency room, are you not?
Amen.
So let's be careful with our judgment. But at the same time, let's apply God's instructions here. Now the Pharisees are watching Jesus' every move, right?
Yes.
They're trying to catch him at something. They're trying to catch him doing wrong because they are the perfect law keepers, right? They are the perfect commandment keepers, and they're trying to get Jesus doing something wrong to prove that he is not the Son of God. So they're watching him. Just picture this. The disciples are on mission. They're running through the fields, And Brother Jim, you can relate to this. As they're going through the fields, they're grabbing heads of wheat. Heads of corn, kernels of corn, if you will, the Bible talks about. It's not corn, it's actually wheat. One Sabbath translates in the Hebrew, if you trace it down in the Hebrew, it's a word that refers to a ceasing of activity or rest. God didn't tell you to rest on a Sabbath day, every week of your life to impress Him. You're not doing what you're doing today to impress Him. You're doing what you're doing today for you. When God tells you to rest on your Sabbath, really and truly, this is not a day of rest for me and Brother Lance. I'll be more tired when I get home this evening. I can't explain it. It's not nothing physical. It's all mental. But I'll be smooth give out the time I get home this evening. And sometimes we preach somewhere on a Sunday night. Not very often, but sometimes we will. So this day is not a day of rest for everyone. But if this can be your day of rest, it's the best day to take, I think. Right? But if it can't be, you need to find a day of the week to call your Sabbath. Now, here we go. It's a ceasing of activity or rest in honor of the day when God rested from His creation of the world. You say, well, Brother Larry, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. Well, you don't know how much I need to work. I probably know that too. But if the God of creation worked 6 days and had to rest the 7th, what makes you think that you're stronger than He is? No wonder we have so much stress in our lives. We have not learned. Don't you like this kind of preaching? We have not learned how to rest. We got to get it all in. And we got to get it all in 1 week. And God said, no. Don't work 2 or 3 weeks without taking that Sabbath rest. No, don't stretch this out. Don't take advantage of it this way or add to or take away. He said, do you work how many days? 5? No. 4? No. 6. He said, you work 6 days. Now that may be things around the house. That may be at your secular job. It may be, in some kind of training you're doing. It could be work for the church, whatever that is that you're doing. But 6 days, God says, stay active. But He said, you better. Thou shalt rest on 1 day, the Sabbath day. The reason why He chose that, He wanted us to remember that when He brought the Hebrew children out of Egypt, the Egyptians worked the Hebrew children 7 days a week, long hours. And He wanted them to understand, He wanted the people that were over them, their leaders, Moses and all of those, Aaron and all of those, to understand that they needed rest. Just like you need rest. Genesis 2:3. Let me prove some of this now. Lance, is this your water?
Probably.
I'll sit there and drink out of your water. I don't put it. Genesis 2:3 says, and God blessed the 7th day, listen to this, and sanctified it, because that in it He had rested from all of His work which God created and made. Listen to me. If God had to rest on the 7th day, this is God of the universe, Jehovah, the creator of anything and everything that we see or touch, including ourselves. If it was a big job. No, your job's not that big, but you're not as big as God either. But if He had to find a day to rest, you better bet yourself His instructions is valid for you today. Amen. You better find that 1 day to rest. And you better find that day to meditate. The perfect day of rest is a day that you can include God in it. Maybe worship Him a little bit. Maybe talk to Him a little bit more that day. Maybe pray a little bit. Maybe get you a good Christian book or read His book, the Bible. But put that day aside to rest. But society's got away from it. It's 7 days a week and it's 24 hours a day. Is it not? Is it not? And if you're not careful, that's your schedule too. But I'm going to tell you something. You'll either do it God's way, or there will be a price to pay. Now, I don't know if God's going to reach down His hand to punish us for it, but it'll come across. It'll come across in our health. It'll come across in our stress level. It'll come across on Sunday when you come to church that you can't hardly stay awake because you've hit it hard so much during the week and you've not obeyed God's law. We're getting away from this kind of teaching. This is a big one. This is right up there with the rest of them. The Lord declared the seventh day of the week to be a special time of rest and remembrance for His people. That's you still. That's us today. It was made for you. It wasn't made for God. The Sabbath. To rest from all of His work which God created to make, which He incorporated into the 10 Commandments because it's so important that you find this day of rest. Exodus 20:8 says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. People don't do that no more. They're working, they're trying to get ahead. You're loving me a little bit too much right now. I need to push some of that back. I can feel this love coming. Let me push some of this down. We get in debt, which the Bible talks about it. It's an instruction manual. We get over our head. We take on another job. Mama's got 2, Daddy's got 3, and you're trying to slip in a Sabbath day, and you're wondering why your body can't hold up and why you're so stressed out.
Amen.
And why all these things are coming against you. You're not doing it God's way.
That's right.
We've got to do it God's way. Listen, you can't come up with your own plan. People's been trying to do that forever. It's just like tithing. You say, well, that's not about us anymore. You tell me how long this church will survive if we all decide to tithe what we want to tithe. You tell me that. So, Brother Larry, I like to come to church to visit. Well, I didn't know we was going to hear about that. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to apologize, but listen to me. It's God's way or it's no way. It will not work without God's instructions. He said, work 6. Now, let's go to the other side of the story. What about the folks now? We always have health issues. You know, there's always disease, health issues, and things that pull us away from this. God understands those things. You know, not all of us are in perfect health. But what about those that work 2 days a week and take off 5? It's not meant to be that way. It's not meant to work that way. How many days did He say work? 6. I didn't make that up. God Himself did it. He was tired. He needed rest. I don't know if He was tired the way we know tired, but He was functionally, He needed to get away from it, and He needed that 7th day of rest. So we're not under the Old Testament anymore, Brother Larry. You got to be careful with that. You know, we don't have to do that tithing thing anymore. We just give what we want to give. When it's all left over, well, if you don't have to tithe 10% under, if you don't have to tithe 10% under the law, what should you tithe under grace? Give me a number. If you're not required to tithe 10% of our income under the law anymore, then give me the number of what you're supposed to tithe under grace. The number probably should go up, wouldn't you think? So you might want to look back on that. Might be a better number for you. We cannot live our life the way society's living their life. It just can't be done. Let me go a little further. I'd like to ask the question, who in here feels like they need some rest? Brother, I didn't mean for you to have to raise your hand. I found a little commentator, I really like the way he said, and I'm going to quote this, because I don't want to get any copyright or anything. I'm going to quote this to you, what he said, commentator Chuck Smith, who it is. He said, and it came to pass that he went through the cornfields. He's telling this story again, see, he's the commentator here. Really like the way he wrote this up. And that it would be actually wheat fields. They call the little kernel the corn of the wheat. That little ball up there was called the corn of the wheat as they went through the wheat fields. Pharisees are watching them. They're working. They're picking they're picking corn on the Sabbath day. Well, Brother Larry, you're telling us not to work. Listen, there's human needs that come about. A surgeon's going to have to work on a Sunday sometime, especially if it's you, right? A police officer's going to have to drag somebody out of the road. A preacher's going to have to preach. There's human needs, and Jesus understood it. He said, they have need. They're hungry. The Pharisee says, it's the Sabbath. Listen to what the commentator says. He says, it was on the Sabbath day. Now, they're talking about a Saturday back then, and his disciples began as they went through to pluck the ears of corn. Now, during the months of May and June, as the wheat is getting ripe, you take up and pick off that little top part of the wheat that they did. It's called the corn of the wheat. And you take and you rub it in your hands. And you knock off the chaff. You rub it some more to get you another one and put it in there. Can you see it? The chaff. That's that flaky stuff, the hull. And you grind it, and here, they're moving. Boy, they're moving through the wheat field. They got their own mission, and they're hungry. And it come down to these little kernels in their hand. And you put those little wheat kernels in your hand, these little buds-like things, and actually, they would chew it. And it would turn into like a gum form. And they could chew that all day. And it satisfied their hunger. He's telling about this. He said, then you eat it, and the kernel is soft enough that you can chew it with your teeth. And as you chew it for a while, it makes a sort of a gum, actually. And you can chew it all the day if you want to. He said this, I love this story, that's why I picked him out. He said when he was a kid, he said that we used to pick the wheat out of the chicken feed. These little wheat kernels was in the chicken feed. He said, we'd run out and we'd pick them little kernels out of the chicken feed. You know, we used to be poor, didn't we? We'd chew it until we got our gum out of it, if you will. We'd chew that all day. And we'd go on chewing the wheat gum all day long, but of course, it would keep us from being hungry. A lot of times you'd go in to eat and you wouldn't eat. Mom said, what's wrong? You been into that wheat again? And it was something like what the disciples did that day that they were being judged for. Going through the wheat field, and they just grabbed some of these little corns of wheat and began to rub it in their hands as they was going, blowing on it, shaking it, put it in their mouth, and they keep them going. They get them another one. Can you see it? Put it in their mouth. And the Pharisees said unto him, behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? And he said unto them, have you never read what David did when he had a need and was a hungered, he and they that were with him, how he went into the house of God in the days of Abinadab the high priest, and did eat the showbread, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priests, and gave also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Humans' needs takes precedence over the law. Jesus proved it here. But it's one thing to reach and get something because you're hungry. It's another thing to reach and get it because you're greedy.
Amen.
Come on. I got one amen. Who was that? Ashley, you're a friend of mine. It's one thing to reach and grab the wheat on some Sabbath day because you're hungry. Jesus allowed it. There was human need.
Yeah.
But there's another thing to reach and start sticking it in your sack because you're greedy.
That's right.
Yes.
I need this, it runs faster. I need this, it runs slower. I need this, it's bigger, it's better. I need another job to pay for it. I got to go back to the bank and get another loan on top of this loan. And you can understand somebody having a loan for a place to live. Sure. You can understand somebody needing a loan for an automobile to get back and forth to work. But let me tell you something, be careful beyond that.
Amen.
Because you're going to be a slave to the debtor. You're going to be indebted to the lender. Then you work 2 jobs. Then you work 3. Then you retire and it's not enough. Oh, I didn't come here to be loved. I did not come here to be loved. I come here to give you the truth of God's Word. And it hurts most of the time because we have so much growing to do, including myself. And then the next thing, we're so give out because of work that the first place you'll notice it is in God's house. They're hungry, Jesus said.
Mm-hmm.
There's human need. Now, according to the law, when you went through a man's cornfield, or wheat field, if you will, you could pick the corn and eat it, even on the Sabbath. But you couldn't carry any out. Society is trying to carry out too much.
Amen.
We're trying to have too much.
Right.
We're trying to carry too much. We're trying to fill every sack that we can find. More, and more. That more costs us something. That more costs us time. Then there you go. There goes that one day. There goes that one day. The next thing you know, that day's God's day. Well, I'll just take God's day now. Listen. You couldn't carry any out. You weren't to take a sickle and cut it down and carry out the sheaves of corn. If you were going through an orchard, you could pick the fruit and you could eat it, but you couldn't carry any fruit out. Human need, hunger. God made provisions for that. He told us, if you'll do by my instructions as I teach you to do, I will take care of you and your family.
Amen.
If you're hungry, go and pick an orange. But you better not try to do that today. Because some kids to slap you with a $500 fine if you pick one of their oranges off their orchard. Now that's what he quoted in here. You couldn't go set you a little stand up on Sunday or the Sabbath or your Sabbath or whatever. You couldn't go set a little stand up and start selling what you picked. See, God has instructions. He's telling you how to live. But we'll just fight it. We'll just kick and argue and fight. Go find another preacher that makes us feel a little better, tickles our ears. But we'll just fight over it. When it just says, work 6, rest 1. Brother Larry, we can't. We've got too much. Exactly. Period. Put that period right there. Yeah. Now, every now and then things come up. Jesus understood that. He talked about the cow being in the ditch, oxen being in the ditch. He talked about being hungered, what to do. Go get what you need. Don't overly get what you need, etc., etc. You could eat to your own need, and you could eat till you're satisfied, actually, because he commanded. And so the disciples were doing just that. They were walking through someone's wheat field, and they just began to pluck the little kernels and to eat them. And it was the Sabbath day. Now, to the Pharisees and the scribes, that constituted a violation of the Sabbath day law. You're not to do any work, they said. But Jesus said, aren't you glad you served Jesus Christ and the good Lord? I mean, he's not even unreasonable. He's telling him, folks, this is the Lord God. You know, he's speaking through his word. He said, I want to tell you something that's going to be very beneficial to your life. It's going to be beneficial to your family. It's going to be beneficial to your health. It's going to remove so much stress out of your life if you'll just work 6 days and rest 1. We have a society now that wants to work 7, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 16-hour days. We have a society now that wants to work 1 or 2 days a week and take off 6 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the whole opposite. That's no better. It changes God's law. Now, we retire, but tell me how many retire. My daughter-in-law said, well, what? I said, I won't tell you which one, but she said, well, Larry, what do y'all do? She said that, it's hard to take anyway, but it's like, well, y'all both retired. What do y'all do? It's just, the whole thing, the whole framework. Listen, I'm busier now than I was when I worked a secular job. At least when I was working as a state trooper, they told me what to do every day, Charlie. I didn't have to worry about anything till I got off work or maybe a day off. But now I have to figure all this out, how to get all this done. How to stay busy. Plenty to stay busy in. More than I want. I have to hunt. And I have to make this one day happen. I have to just shut down to make it happen. But it works. It works so well for me. And it will you too. Well, the Pharisees thought they were violating the Sabbath. Jesus said, no, they're hungry. They have a right to do this. He said when David was fleeing from Saul, he said he went in and even ate the showbread that was only allowed to the priest because God allowed it. He announced himself as the Lord of the Sabbath. God says, I know what I'm doing. I know my instructions to you are true and faithful. Making that statement, we need to remember the Sabbath was made for man. It's for man's benefit. And I'm still quoting here from Brother David's commentary. Really, we would all be wise to observe the Sabbath. To give our bodies a chance to recuperate. How many times have you been to the doctor and he said, you need to get the stress out of your life and you need, I'm going to let y'all guess what that word would be. Rest. Have you been reading the Bible, doctor? Have you been reading the Bible? Because that's exactly what the Lord says. We have something, okay. I still think some of you are trying to love on me. We have so much things. We have so many things. The United States has more material possessions than any country in the world.
Yeah.
Everything that you have takes time. It takes money, and it takes hours to pay for it. The further you get into debt, the longer hours you'll have to work to get out of debt. Brother Larry, you're trying to tell me how to live my life. No, I'm not telling you that. The Bible's telling you that. Is it wrong to go out and go into debt to try to start a family and start a home? Surely not. No. People borrowed in the Bible. But when it gets excessive, and when we get in it, I need it now mentality, I want it right now mentality, it gets us in trouble. I want more, and I want more, and I want more. There goes that day of rest. But here comes the emergency room in time. You think God's wrong? It gets a little better here. I'm just about to start the other way. Let me tell you, this Sabbath thing is for our benefit. I don't hear this preached very often. Very seldom do I hear this. preached. 6 days and rest 1. And many times if it is preached, it's trying to get you here on church on Sunday. That's not even what I'm trying to do. Most time people miss Sunday because their life is too complicated during the rest of the week. They're using Sunday to catch up for everything God said to do on this one day that they should be doing it. And the Sundays is what suffers. For God, anyway. Jesus and his disciples were not stealing when they picked the grain. Leviticus 19 says, "And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field." Talking about those farmers that harvested their grain. It said, don't reap the corners of your field. Neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy field. Don't pick up all the stuff that dropped on the ground. "And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and strangers. I am the Lord thy God," it said. Deuteronomy 23:25 says, "When thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbors, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thy hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle into thy neighbor's standing corn." This was only for hunger reasons. Just like walking on a sidewalk. If it's a sidewalk, if it's a city sidewalk, you have a right to be there. Picking heads of grain at the edge of the field was not stealing. The Pharisees was trying to point that it was. But what happens is, even though it was okay for Jesus to do that, he wasn't working those men necessarily. They was just taking care of their basic needs. The one that's going to suffer here by not doing what God says is you. And me, if I don't. And I have before. God's law said that crops should not be harvested on the Sabbath. In Exodus 34:21 it says, 6 days thou shalt work, but on the Sabbath day thou shalt rest. In earning time, yearing time, and in harvest thou shalt rest. I gave you another version of that. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work. That may include working your secular job. That may include taking care of a family, taking care of your home, the maintenance on your car, etc., etc. It don't have to be just secular work. Believe me, I've learned that now. He says that main thing too, though, he was trying to protect the laborers. We talked about that, from being overworked. The Hebrew children were so used to these long, hard hours when they were enslaved in Egypt. And when he brought them out, he wanted to make sure all the leaders and everybody understood, yes, we still should work hard. God tells us to work hard. But we need a time of rest. And we have not that time. Our life gets completely out of balance. You can't enjoy church. You're too tired. Even that day, if we don't get in the habit of taking a day a week, it may be your Sunday to do that. It's hard for it to be my Sunday to do that because I need a day to prepare sermons, Wednesday night lessons, Sunday school lessons. So I've kind of combined one day a week in my house. I try not to get nothing started. I try to study and try to check in with God and talk to the Lord a little bit more that day. But if I'm not careful, that day can turn into be a day of work. I wake up, get a headache from studying so much or whatever, trying to get things going, that I have to say, Larry, this is your day of rest. Now, you have to be careful. Sometimes people will plug hobbies into that day. Most of the time on my hobbies or lake trips, if I took a lake trip or something, I'd come back way more exhausted than when I left. We have to be careful. It needs to be a day of rest. Hundreds of years of rabbinical, I'm saying that right, teaching had added numerous unbearable and arbitrary restrictions to God's original requirements. It did. And that's what Jesus was teaching against. But it still did not take away that day of rest. Jesus would walk away to get away from the crowds very often and be gone for lengthy periods of time to retain rest. It says that, and it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first that he went through the cornfields. His disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands. Now see, Luke tells us that they rubbed them in their hands. That's what got the Pharisees all excited. And certain of the Pharisees said unto them, Why do you that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath day? Jesus and his disciples were not harvesting the grain. They were only satisfying their hunger. There's a difference there. God created the Sabbath for our benefit. And it's very important how we use that Sabbath. Mark 2:27 says, And he said unto them, The Sabbath, Christy, you want to come on?
Sure.
He said unto them, The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. I know I've repeated that 100 times. Here's the bottom line. This is my last sentence. It's 10 after. That's pretty good for me. We will be restored both physically and spiritually if we allow it. When we take time to rest and to focus on God. That's why he laid that down. We take time to re-energize ourselves, to rest, and to focus. And maybe spend some extra time with God that day. Whether you're reading a book or just whatever the case. I can't tell you exactly what to do. But I can tell you this. When I was a trooper, and I bring up the drowning thing a lot, but a lot of times I'd catch a drowning on my last day to work. It never was Friday, it was like a Saturday or Sunday. I'd catch a drowning, and I'd catch it at the tail end of the shift. And drownings are funny. I mean, it's, I'd go on a day off on a Monday. Sometimes supervisors would go ahead and let you have it off. Sometimes they'd make you stay and finish working the drowning. That has to be search and recovery. Sometimes you had recovery right off. Sometimes you didn't. If you get 100 phone calls on a drowning, you don't get very many. Your phone begins to light up, and it's just one person after the next wanting information. Naturally, mom and dads, family members, attorneys, anybody and everybody. Once I got the family notified, the next of kin notified, I learned to do one thing. It took me 30 some odd years to learn it. I turned that phone off. I hated to, but I didn't have the energy left in me to talk to another person. I just reached down and turned it off. I was on a day off. Now they know who to get a hold of to get what they need. It wasn't like they were shut out. But I didn't need to be that person. Sometimes you don't need to be that person. Sometimes God's saying you don't have to carry the biggest load as you're carrying. We have to learn as Christians how to balance our lives. How to carry a certain amount of a load and how to lay loads down. That's why he gives us these rules and commandments. Work 6 days if you need to, but always rest 7. Tithe. Do these things. Did you know, I'll say this, did you know if a person gets in the habit of tithing, there's a great chance, a great percentage, I won't give you a percentage on it, that debt will not be a major factor in your life? Well, I guess maybe God had something to do with that. He's a pretty good banker. Do you know that? But if we're not careful, we'll walk right out of here today, say, boy, he didn't make me feel very good today. I don't know about that deal. It's not about me. But we'll walk right out of here and we'll continue to do everything just like we're doing it. If you got too much, get rid of something. If you have to spend so many hours of your life trying to keep up certain things in your life and you can't go by what God tells you to do, it's time to make some changes in your life. You will change. You may not like the method, but you will change. I just had a good friend of mine that's captain of the highway patrol that had a stroke. He's a young man. And I'll just be honest with you. He goes hard at it. He's too young. But amen. God is not our enemy. He's here to give us instructions about our life, to give us a better quality of life, to allow us to have more time to serve Him, to not be so burnt out, not be so stressed and have to try to take everything in the world that we can get a hold of so that we can sleep, so that we can wake up. God never meant for that to be that way. You can get in a car at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can go buy anything you want in this area. You can go to the convenience store and get anything you want. Probably go down, I think Walmart's still open, isn't it? All night there in Muskogee?
Yeah, Muskogee is 24/7. A lot better people to talk for. 200%.
Do you understand? Let me ask you a question and we'll close. We're done. I'm a long-winded preacher. When Lance preaches, you'll get out here on time most of the time. It's every other week. Do you understand? It's hard. But do you understand why God does what He does? He says, I'm the Lord of the earth and the universe, and I chose to rest the seventh day. 6 days will you work and 1 day will you rest? He knew what it takes. He created you. He knows what you're made out of. He knows your chemical makeup. And when you start trying to do it different and doing it your way, believe me, I've been there. Something's going to give. If it's not your health, that's probably going to be the first thing you'll notice. Doctors, first thing they'll say, too much stress, not enough rest. Next thing may be your marriage, if you're still married. Next thing may be a disconnection with your kids. It could be the kids hadn't been taught this. I should quit, but it's not yet. I can take you to any four-way stop sign that you pick out. As long as it's got traffic coming through. You know what I mean by traffic? Cars.
No.
I can take you to any four-way stop sign that's got heavy traffic on it. And so can these men here. We got another retired trooper back here. Our adult teacher's retired trooper, Brother Gerald. I can take you and get you off in the bushes there in your patrol car. And I can set you up on that four-way stop sign. If you want to see something, you sit there for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see the God-awfulest things in people's expressions and in their faces that you've ever seen in your life. It's better than any movie that you could find on TV. They're pulling up to the stop signs and they're banging on the steering wheels. They're talking to their, oh yeah. Charlie, am I lying to you? They're talking to themselves. They're stressed out. They're yelling and screaming. Wives and husbands are fighting. Dad's got a fist hold of the kid in the back seat. That's anywhere here. Tahlequah or Muskogee you want to go. And you're sitting there. And you're sitting there and you're watching this. Too much stress. Too many things coming at us. Taking on too big of loads. Working too many hours. And you know, we should respect people that work anymore. God said work 6, take 7. And you know, those that want to work 2, try to get by with 2 days a week and not work what God says to work unless it's a health issue or a retirement thing to where you're trying to balance that out. But why can't we not just say, I want to do it the way God said to do it? Why can we not as a church and as God's people say, I know, Brother Larry, that's got to be better for my life and my family and my children's life. I think I'll give it a shot. Why can we not just do that? Instead of wanting to argue and get in the floor and kick and fight and, well, we'll find another church that says that I can do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. Why can't we just not do that? A good evangelist that I like to listen to a lot, she said, I'm so tired. I am so busy. That's what people tell her. I am so busy. My life is so busy. She said, I got to where I despised hearing that. Because you know who's in charge of your schedule?
You.
Who said that? Ashley, was that you? You're a double friend now. You are. Right?
I lock you out the door, you.
You are. Right? You know what I want? I don't know if we'll ever get our visitors back, but listen, I want joy in my life. I want peace. I want to learn how to do it God's way. And I want the blessings on my life. I want my health.
Amen.
I sneezed one time and I pulled a little something in my back. You know, my head was turned the wrong way and I sneezed real hard. And I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. And you don't want God to take your health unnecessarily. Or you take your health because of irresponsibility.
Yeah.
And you go to the doctor and you get the drugs to calm you down. To make you rest because you're too busy. You go to the doctor and you get the drugs to help you sleep because your mind is... And I understand we have issues at times and you need those things. I'm not talking against medicine. I'm not talking against providing for your family. But then you sleep so hard because you're so medicated, you got to take the medicine to wake up to get to work.
Right. Yeah.
I've been there.
God never meant for it to be that way.
No.
Amen?
Amen.
Okay, Christy. We'll just sing. I'm going to let you keep your seats. Christy's going to sing one song. If you need to come to the altar for whatever reason, you need to receive the Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior. If your life is out of balance, doesn't mean that's why you're coming, but here's an open channel. If your life is out of balance and you just need some help, and you need God to say, God, I heard that today. And man, I tell you what, my plate's overloaded. I sure would like to have some more of that joy and some of that peace and find some of those days of rest. You come on down. This altar's always open.